To everyone on our Facebook, thank you for coming in earlier. We started just starting it. My name is Putri Amina, and I'll be the moderator. Today, the main objective is discussing about what it takes to pursue a career in a global IT company and how computer science builds it all up. And we are all from, well, the panels are from alumni of IIUM, and I am a final year student. And we would like to share how success can be for our graduates when global companies seek them for jobs. Firstly, I would like to introduce our panels. Okay, we have Brother Zahir, live in from Canada. Brother Zahir was an IIM graduate for his degree in 2018, and he have also completed his master's in Queen's University, Canada. Among his experiences are he have more than 5 years of experience participating in competitive programming. He was an intern, software engineering intern in Quintic. He has 4 years experience being a research assistant and also teaching assistant in IIUM and Queens. And currently, he is a software engineer with Amazon Vancouver in Canada. Secondly is Brother Ashraf. He is streaming live from London. He completed his degree here in IIM also in 2018. Among his experiences is more than 6 years of experience in software development, freelancing for companies, including Petronas. He had 2 years of working as a software engineer at Graff, Malaysia, and currently working with Amazon London in UK. And thirdly, we have Brother Sohib, live streaming from Malaysia, and he is the most recent graduate from IIM. He graduated this year, 2020. Among his experiences is he have won first place in ICPC Malaysia National Contest 2019. He has also participated in several competitive programming contests. He was an intern at Grab Malaysia, and he will be joining Amazon Madrid in December as a software development engineer. Now, without further ado, I would like to address the first question to Brother Zahir. Brother Zahir, now you have started working in Vancouver. How is it like working in an established IT company?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So when I joined here, it's kind of interesting because of the whole pandemic situation. I got to go to my office only in my first week. So since then, I have been working from home. I think Ashraf here also knows about that. He's also working from home. So in that regard, I guess our experience is a bit different than it would have been if it was from there. Otherwise, the biggest perks, I would say, working in a big company like this is you get to work with a lot of smarter people than you yourself. And there is a lot of things you can learn from them. So which is kind of like in university, you learn at a particular level. And then I think the next stages are if you can get into this kind of places, that gives you more opportunity to learn from people who are experienced, both experienced and smarter than you are. So that is so far my experience. And other than that, it's a big company, so you need to in the beginning go through a big long onboarding process, and you will get to learn the whole inner workings of them. So I'm still going through that right now. It takes years to actually totally get adapted to such a big company. So yeah, so far it has been good.
How long have you been with Amazon Vancouver?
So I've started in March this year, so it's 7 month running for me.
Oh, okay. Wow, learning from smarter people. That's amazing. How about you, Brother Ashraf? I was told that you have just completed your quarantine, and how is your experience working so far?
So far, I've been working from home, so I haven't seen any of the office yet. But it's kind of like Grab. Grab also have a little, big companies like this, they have their own software, they have their own infra because of their own requirement. But Amazon's software and infra is a lot more extensive than Grab. Yeah, so I think the biggest perks of working with such big companies is that you got to see how do they manage such software at such scale, and how do they manage it for the scale of thousands of engineers. Yeah.
I see. How about brother Sohaib? Sorry. Since you had the opportunity of interning at Grab, so what was your experience there?
For me, my experience when I joined Grab was that for the first time, I had to experience working on a huge scale. It was completely different from any project or any company I worked with before. As Ashraf said, such big companies like Grab or Amazon, they usually have their own software, their own infrastructure for for their need. So you get to work with a lot of way smarter people. You contribute to a really fast-paced environment. You contribute to a code base that will be later on like in a software that's used by millions of users. So that was really interesting for me to be like to be an intern uh, for for such big company and to see myself, even if my work was not huge, but this work have impact that like touch so many people. Yeah, so that was really unique experience for me.
That is quite a big impact to get from just an internship.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for the next question, can each of you provide like a walkthrough of how your process with going into Amazon was like? Because coincidentally, all three of you are IIUM alumni, and all three of you are working with Amazon right now. So can we start with Brother Zahir?
So if I start since my graduation from IIUM, so I did not right away go into the industry. I went ahead with my master's in Queen's University. So while like Ashraf was in Grab, I was doing my master's there. So I completed my master's in 2000 last year, September. So during that period of time, I started my application for jobs, and the application process for all these companies, they take a very long time, around at least it will take 2 to 3 months. It can take even more than that. And so I applied around September last year, and then I started to get responses around the end of September and the beginning of October. And my interview process with Amazon started October last year, and it went ahead until end of January.
Wow.
So, and at the same time, I was going ahead in multiple interviews. So I was interviewing at the same time with Google Waterloo here. So one of the thing is if you can align all your interviews for these companies side by side, it actually can help you. Is that you prepare once, and can attend all the interviews at the same time, so you don't spend double effort there. So by end of February, I had both my offers from there, and due to so each company has their own hiring process. So let's say in Amazon, they do more targeted hiring in terms of they have a particular team, and that team directly hires you or takes your interview and stuff like that. But let's say for Google, their hiring is more general. So they first interview you and assess you whether you are a general hire or not. So once you pass that, there is a team interview. So you interview with 1 or 2 or 3 teams until you find a match. So when the both team and you say that you are okay to join, so then you get to join that team. So there is an extra process. So I, with Google, I had gone to that team interview process, but before, when that was there, all the options I had, so the team I would get to part of in Amazon was more lucrative for me. And then I kind of decided to go with Amazon. And that was kind of the whole duration from like September till end of February for me.
That's a long process.
Yes.
Okay. How about Brother Ashraf?
Yeah, for me, uh, Amazon have a hiring event at Kuala Lumpur. So at that time, so their recruiters go out to reach all their in LinkedIn who they want to interview. So I, you know, I responded to that invitation. I go through the whole process, which take around 1 or 2 months also. But instead of them coming to Kuala Lumpur for the interview, because of the COVID-19, it's all remotely done. Yeah.
Or else, if there's no COVID, they will come here physically and interview the team from London,
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a hiring team to do that. So in my case, the interview take one whole day of for 1 hour interview. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. For what about
And
you, Brother
before that,
Safin?
there's an automated coding test also.
Before the interview.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Brother Safin?
Okay, for me, I started preparing to apply for such big companies back in 2018. I tried to first prepare my resume and see what's the necessary skills and try to prepare myself first because I wanted to land an internship at one such company. I applied so many times in 2018. I got very few interviews, and even those interviews I did not pass. And then I tried to see like what went wrong, what did I miss in the process, like were my resume not good enough, or like what was missing, what did I not do right in the interview. And then I went again in my final year at IIUM to apply for like entry level. Usually, most companies have like an entry level or junior level graduate program positions where they recruit only like, or this rules specific for university graduates. So I started applying for such roles. I did interviews with like so many companies back in 2019. I interviewed with Amazon, interviewed with Google, interviewed with Shopee, interviewed with Bloomberg, and many others. The process with Amazon particularly started around September. The process started with like a virtual coding test. After that, you get called for a phone interview after like a few weeks, and then if you pass this phone interview, they invite you on site to do like an on-site interview. I got this on-site interview back in November. They flew me from Kuala Lumpur to Madrid, so I went there and I had like a whole day back-to-back interviews. It was, I think, around four interviews on the same day. After this interview, around 2 weeks, I got a call back from from my recruiter that, hey, congratulations, you passed the interview and here's your offer. That was around early December. So yeah, that was the process like for me. But like one of the stuff I learned back in 2018 and that I applied when I applied like last time 2019 was that usually if you have a contact like a senior, for example, who work in such company, who know you personally, who can refer you or like recommend you to join for such position. This, as Ashraf said, the most difficult part is to land the interview. Like later on, if you have an interview, you can like prepare yourself. So if you get an internal employee referral for such company, that can increase, like it will not guarantee, but it will increase your chance of getting an interview. And that's what I did. I have one of my seniors who actually worked with Amazon Edinburgh, who referred me like for this Madrid position. And that's when I got my Amazon interview. So yeah, that was the process like for me.
Wow, it was each of you have very different perspectives from the for the application. It's nice to know how Amazon really looks into its employees by actually bringing you guys on site or coming here to KL to make sure you get the right people.
Just to add there,
Mhm.
like almost all the like big companies, they do that. So they would fly you there. So let's say if it was Google or anything, if you get approved or you pass to the on-site, they will fly you there. So for me, in my case, they flew me to Waterloo and then Vancouver for the on-site interviews. So like almost all the companies, if you pass to their on-site, they would do that.
Oh wow! Okay, I
Yeah,
see.
Yes.
so
And
so these companies are always looking for talent. The problem is how do they get to them and how do you get to them? Yeah.
yes.
Oh, okay. So we have to reach out to them as well, and they will look for us.
Yeah, so the
Yes.
thing is thousands of people reached out to them at the same time.
Yeah.
So how do you make yourself stand out among those thousands of people? That's the
Mm-hmm.
hard part.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll discuss that
And
later. Okay. Yeah, brother Zari?
for them, it's also kind of to get to accepted for the on-site is also achievement in their eye. So it's also their
Mm.
way of saying thank you, kind
Oh,
of.
Mm.
Even if
wow.
you don't get accepted from this point on,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, there's a reward for you.
Oh, okay, that's nice. Before we continue the next question, I would like to remind the audience that you can ask the questions in the comment section of the Facebook Live. Okay.
Oh,
Yep. So we have a team that will compile the questions and we will address it by the end of the session. Okay, next. Since you said what makes you stand out, brother, from other applicants, right, brother Ashraf? Can you
yeah.
share what was your preparation?
So preparation wise, the Amazon have like this guided tour to prepare for the interview. To get the interview, however, I simply got kinda lucky with circumstances because I was already in Grab at that time. And these companies they tend to look for other similar companies, not really similar, but companies that have experience working with high traffic, high traffic
Mm,
and such workload. So when they have a hiring event in KL, they would look for people like me in LinkedIn. That is generally the way how I get into the interview.
mm,
So interview wise, there's generally two aspects, which is the technical aspect and also especially for Amazon, there's the cultural aspect. The cultural aspect for Amazon, they pretty much have a whole guide for it. So you can work to make sure that you pass for that interview on this cultural aspect, and they actually do want you to work for that. Right? Think of this interview as they really want you to come to their company, but you must convince them that you can come. You pass the lower bar. Right? As for the technical aspect, if you're used to ICPC style programming, ICPC as in competitive programming, generally speaking, they don't ask very hard question. They ask classical question. I guess an exception to this is Google and Facebook, which I heard is a lot harder than let's say Amazon or Microsoft. So since I was already quite a bit active in competitive programming, that particular part is not that hard for me.
mm,
Yeah. In terms of things like GitHub or something like that. Generally, this kind of big companies that may be useful for the technical recruiter to look into, but once you get into the interview, that usually doesn't come into play.
mm,
Sometimes for Grab it does, depending on the interviewer, but I suspect for bigger companies like Amazon or Google, it doesn't come into effect too much.
mm.
Yeah.
What about you, brother Zari?
Yes, to add to what Ashraf said, so the on the cultural side, Amazon has these 14 leadership principles that they very much adhere to. So you might think from the outside is that they only have those as some vision or logos or mottos out there, but internally when you work, they actually evaluate your performance based on those leadership principles. And they when they hire people, they want to see those qualities are present among the people applicants. And in the one of the thing that is unique to Amazon with all the other companies in terms of interviews is that for each interview, so let's say for Google, they have only one 30-minute session for doing this behavioral interview. But for Amazon, you have, so on the on-site interview, you have a total of 5, sometimes 6 interviews. So each interview for is broken down into 1 hour session, and for in each of those 1 hour session, you have 20 minutes for 15 to 20 minutes for those behavioral question by each interviewer, and then 40 to 45 minutes for the technical question. So it ends up that for Amazon, and one whole 1 hour is for which is your the manager that would be hiring you with them. So you end up having 2 hours of behavioral session there. So which is very unique from other ones. Like for Google, every session is only 45 minutes. You go to only the technical parts, you answer, you don't talk about anything else, and that's there. Okay, but that's very different in Amazon. And also in terms of the question structures in Amazon, you should expect very unstructured questions and not like the way it's very well defined as you would find in online judges and everything else. So that is something you should look forward to.
I see.
I think the cultural aspect is a bit more specific to Amazon. Yeah, especially Amazon. Most other companies, they would think in terms of, do I like this guy or not? That is their cultural aspect. You know, Grab also have like their own culture, and you are kind of assessed by that culture. But in the interview, that is not really highlighted, at least before. Not like Amazon, where it is quite highlighted on each of the interview.
Oh wow. Okay. That kind of speaks a lot on how they don't just hire technical people, they also hire real people that can actually comply to, you know.
One good example for me to share would be that. So in real life, like we are guilty of like for the class projects, we would always do it the last night and we'd still get out of it and done. But here, let's say sometimes even for you to write one line of code, you need to have a meeting with 2, 3 different teams and then have to convince them that this change needs to be made and it is required. So you also need to have a very good negotiation skill for you to be able to make sure that your code is valued and it gets through to production. So that is something very important here. And let's say you had a good idea, but you were not able to convince your team that your idea was good, and then you did not push it further. So that means a bad product went ahead. So Amazon specifically, they don't want that to happen. So they make sure that whoever they're hiring, they're confident about the ideas they have. Even if they're wrong, they should try to push it as far as they can, unless and because everybody else would go through with them in validating the idea. So, but each one should stand up for their own ideas there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the bigger difference between, let's say, a software house or small companies and also large companies like Amazon or Grab. So these companies, they have teams that runs operating systems. So you need to be able to interact with these other systems efficiently. So when you say about technical skill in this company, a lot of people think that these people they just code every day.
Yeah.
That is very far from true, especially for such company. software houses, or when I work as a vendor to Petronas or something. Yeah, then we code a lot every day. But in this kind of environment, a lot of the time is involved in asking around on how to do something like this. Can I do this? Is this a good idea or not? And then let's say you can do it, and then this is a good idea. Then the way that the system is designed is so that things don't crash, and it can be efficiently deployed along with thousands of other engineers. And especially on Amazon, it's going to be a planet scale deployment, right? In a software house, things are not even deployed yet at all. And when it's deployed, it's probably just one instance, you know. Maybe if you got lucky, maybe it's two instances, and there's always going to be one database. In such a large company, the notion of database is even more vague, you know. And you're going to interact with a lot of service that is owned by a lot of other people. So it's not really about just technical skill here, especially here. Yeah, yeah.
You just need to keep in mind, if you mess up one line of code, then a million people will start screaming at you. So be careful.
Yeah. I see. Okay. We'll go to Brother Sahib. You would say you're the most recent student, and most students here can relate to you. How is your self preparation?
About preparation, I think like Brother Ashraf and Brother Zarir said pretty much everything about the process. I did not start with Amazon yet. I should start soon. So all I have like in my mind right now is the process and the interview. As a student, my preparation was not hard to prepare because I was very active in competitive programming, the ICPC competitions. And as Brother Ashraf highlighted, this is usually one of the things that can help you a lot go through the interview when they ask you like easy to medium problem, like to solve like a problem solving question. That's something that like I came across a lot while doing the programming competition. So usually my day to day, like for the past like 3 to 4 years in the university, I was solving this problem almost daily, like just as a hobby or something I do for the competitions. So when it came to the interview preparation, this part was almost done for me. Like I did not spend any time preparing for this technical issue or like this technical side. I was more focused into the behavioral side, or as Brother Darir highlighted, the Amazon leadership principles. Amazon take the behavioral or the Amazon leadership principles very, very seriously. It get highlighted very clearly in the interviews. In every single individual interview, you will get asked about the Amazon leadership principles. So my preparation was most of the time was focused on this behavioral side and how can you relate your previous experiences into the leadership principles. So for example, they will ask you like a question about like, hey, tell me like about a time when like from your previous experience something like that happened. And when you like tell the story or like you say about your experience, your answer should show that you as a person like is aligning with Amazon leadership principles. You are someone that can fit in their culture and their way, or like that can fit with the leadership principles. So that was the majority of my time preparing for the interview, like unlike the algorithms or technical part, which was for me myself, it was really easy. I did not spend any time preparing for it, thanks to like my time I spent along the years doing the programming competition and joining the ICPC and so on. Yeah.
I see. So, what about before the interview? Other than solving programming questions daily, what else would you think the students currently, final semester students or third year, second year students, or those who just want to start in their first year, what would you recommend them to start with for to
Okay.
pursue like
For first or second year students, that can be easier for them to focus on. I would say there is mainly two things that you should keep in mind. First, improve your programming and problem solving skills, as mentioned, like by competitions or whatever the way. But try to keep in mind that this is something very, very important. You have to improve this skill a lot. ICBC was my way of doing this. Like there is ICBC team in IIUM you can join, or whatever the way, any online platform, but try to focus on this skill. Secondly, and this is really important, many students recently I see, they try to focus, or like most of their time, they try to learn like some technology, some tool, particular framework. And this can work for like smaller company or like startup, because as Ashraf said, you will spend most of your time coding, developing something, and the company will look for someone who is well established, comfortable working with their stack or their technology. But as for the big, like Amazon or any big tech company, as also Ashraf said, they have their own software, their own infra. You like there is no way you will have the tools or the frameworks they use, for example, like you cannot know them before joining, because it's stuff that's developed in-house. So usually this company have the resources and like the resources to teach you and help you get the knowledge and the skills required to do the job. But the hard part will be for you to understand the core and like how to think in like a computer scientist way. So the students, especially first and second year, they should really focus on the core courses. They should understand all, like for example, how to say, like databases or like data structure, operating system. They need to understand the science, the core behind all this stuff, because that's what how to say, like that's something common between any company, any framework, any tool. That's the baseline, the back, like the ground that they can build
Foundation.
any, the foundation that they need for any company, for any tool, for any, like for anything later on. That's what they should focus on, rather than like let's just like learn this tool or this framework and that's it. Like that's, I'm good in this thing. If you are targeting to join a big company, you should have a really strong computer science foundation, and you should have a good programming and problem solving skills. So that's the two things first and second year students should start working on from now.
I see. That's a
That
very
said, I would like to add that
yeah.
for, let's say, if you don't target for big companies, then it would be probably beneficial for you to probably go straight to a more common things like Laravel or Firebase.
Yeah, yeah.
That said, and I think I need to highlight this, those are nearly useless in this kind of environment, right? Okay, not so useful. That depends on company. At Grab is quite useful. At Amazon, sometimes it's useful. But what's more important is the underlying data science knowledge, because what they want is for you to have a strong foundation and a very good ability to learn, because there's a lot of internal tools involved. For small and medium company, what they want is that for you to be able to produce value pretty quickly, because they don't have the time and resource to train you or wait you. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So in that case, maybe it's a good idea to learn about this thing, or better yet, try to find a part-time job or something like that to get a bit of experience. But that depends on your choice, because both approach will take time. So it depends.
I see. That's a very good point, because I think now when we want to write resumes, most would like to highlight all the platforms that they have used. They have experience with React Native, and then Laravel. All these frameworks.
That's not a bad idea, especially for a small company. And if I were interviewing people for small or medium, I would look for that. Yeah.
So
I'll add to what Ashraf said before and what Suhaib said. So on top of that, like one of the goal or vision of when you are a student of computer science, you should keep in mind is that if you are studying computer science, the goal is not to be able to learn programming languages or develop softwares. The goal is to learn how to think structurally. And then when you can think structurally, and not only that, you become better observers. So you see patterns in places where normal people would not see those things. So once you are a computer science graduate, the goal is not that you can develop softwares. The goal is that given any particular context and given list of restraints or constraints there, you can, from a problem statement, you can reach a solution. So it could be either on paper or in computer, or in whatever the scenario it is. So the goal is to become better thinkers, critical thinkers, and that you then later on convert to some program or whatnot. That comes very later. So the first idea is like you should see that studying all this data structure and all these systems and stuff, is it making your own personal thinking more structured or not? So if you have a like if you are maintaining a separation between your own thinking process and doing a programming, then that would make you feel that this is not working or this is more difficult. So you can start like practicing in your like the day-to-day stuff, like when you pick up a glass, what are the steps you're taking? Okay, you're moving your hand, picking it up, putting it closer to your mouth and drinking it. Okay, so these are steps. You break down each task and see how they're built up from scratch. So those thinking and those way of breaking down things would help you further down the line. So that's kind of the idea. It's like you become a better thinker than others if you are studying computer science.
So basically, computer science graduates are the problem solvers for softwares, for computing.
Not softwares, they're problem solvers for any situation. Let's say softwares are written for different, like they're written for medical professions, they're written for rockets, they're written for cars, they're written for every possible thing. Computer science itself doesn't provide you anything. It provides you solutions for other important things. So one of the reasons, let's say for me personally, studying computer science, the decision I took it because I can study everything else and I can understand everything else better. So that should be there, because you don't, like, there are softwares you write for the purpose of writing better softwares, but most of the softwares that you use day to day are like for other professions that will help other people. So that means you need to understand better how other systems works. Those other systems could be someone from the medical profession or car industry and stuff like that.
I see. Okay. Where were we? Okay. For next question, can Brother Zari, you share how your, as we have talked earlier about the cultural aspects of Amazon, if we happen to go to other companies other than Amazon, how do we prepare our people skills? If, like, for example, we go to a small company that don't really have these cultural guidelines or these leadership goals that they want the employees to reach, what are like the standards that we can put on ourselves and prepare for that working?
There's a simple answer to that. Prepare for Amazon. You can get into any other company. No problem there. Okay. So yeah, actually, this is not a silly suggestion. This is a good suggestion. You go to the big companies, look at the particular qualities they are looking for. And it is only more relevant that the smaller companies, if they find those qualities in you, they would also appreciate those. Okay, so you can, and sometimes it is that a small company, they only work on one particular project or one particular product. So they need someone who can right away start to work on that. So they really want you to know that one particular framework they use. So then it's a very like case specific thing. Other than that, you can, I would say right now, there are a lot of materials online for all these big companies and the general qualities that people look for in terms of hiring a software engineer. So those are things you can adhere to.
Okay, that's a really good idea. I think that is a very programming approach, as you can see a bigger picture and then just solve all the small questions from one big thing, very optimized. Okay, since we have talked about computer science just now, can each of you give advices and suggestions for the academics, lecturers to improve their classroom sessions so that all what they teach in class will be relevant to their workplace? Brother Ashraf?
Oh, me first. Oh,
It's okay, we can go to whoever's ready.
I'm not ready for this. Answer
Okay.
it first.
Brother Sahib, can you?
Okay, so from my perspective, I just like graduate this year. Relevant to what I just said, that students should focus more on the foundation kind of thing. That also applies to the lectures. Some lectures can add some repetitive technology like for example, what I think can be really help the students in the classroom is if every lecturers try to give more effort, more time from the lecture time to the core, to the foundation, to the science behind the course, rather than like a tool or like a technology they are learning in this course. So that's something that, in my point of view, will help the students because many of them, when they found more attention to a particular tool, they think that that's what important. I need to learn just this tool, and I I don't need to focus on anything else, or that's more priority. But as Zarir highlighted, that we should be as graduate fast learners. I need to learn. I need to pick up any tool, any technology I can, like just by myself learn this tool, you can say. So when I have the strong foundation from the computer science, the science itself, I will be able to like go from this to to anywhere else. I can solve any problem, I can learn anything else. But when I like focus in the classroom on some tool, and I'm not saying I will like completely neglect the science, but give it less priority, that will give the wrong impression to some students that this is actually more important than this, which should be the other way around. Yeah, that's my point.
I can relate to that very well. I think when I learned R, I felt like R was everything, and then I went into Python, and oh, Python looks like simpler, and everyone starts finding Python, and then we get lost, and we don't really understand what the lecturer is actually talking about, and we just focus on solving our assignments, writing the codes, and think that is everything about it.
Yeah.
Okay, what about Brother Zari? What would you recommend?
So yeah, I would repeat what Sohaib said about that. And in terms of class, another thing is if the classes are more project based, and then that certainly would help, because sometimes if you just learn something without a goal in mind, whatever you learn, they tend to get lost. So if you have a particular project that you are building, and then that project would have different component in it, and you will have to put them together. So when you are doing that, that will raise some problems, and then you'll have to solve it. And then the process of solving those issues is that will make you learn. And in terms of, so another thing I would say, when a particular class is centered toward one language or one particular framework, that is kind of not a very optimal situation, because let's say in a lot of classes here, what I found is like they don't teach you HTML throughout one course. So they give you one assignment for 1 week, and that is what you learn HTML, and then you go on forward. Okay, so that is kind of, so HTML is just a tool you use. And if you know how to go through and read a proper document, HTML should take you like, it should not take you like to get the basic done more than 1 week. Okay, and in terms of learning languages, you should learn how the basic construct works. Like for loop is there, so that all the programming languages that are in the same domain, they will all have for loops, and they will all have a function. You might be writing them a bit differently, but you know how what a loop does. So in a particular scenario, if you need a loop, you'll already have it. So you taking up each different course for just that would be repetitive in what you are learning. And what you learn, you need to right away implement it in something for you to retain it. And then to retain that knowledge, you need to learn something even harder on top of that. If you keep on learning the same thing again and again, you will soon start to forget what you learned in that case. So
that's so true.
That is something there. So I would say the project should be a bit bigger in scope, so that would be a more challenging to the students.
Would it help if the project, normally the project is given like half of the semester or almost the end? Would it help if the lecturers introduce projects earlier and then they walk through these?
Yes. So they can mimic the whole system of like in software engineering, you have like you update on the project every 2 weeks. have like kind of a sprint meeting you have. So you have like a design process, and then you have a mock-up template, and then you do your first release, and then you have your final release. So you can mimic that process in each project. But one thing is then you'll have to reshuffle the way. So in the initial projects, you might not be courses, you might not be able to do that. But on the later ones, like let's say for projects, those are in second year, third year. So I think that could be followed.
For more specialized courses, right?
Yes.
I think to what brother Dario said for this exact 2 points, something I noticed that happened particularly in UIA, students like if in the foundation or like in the bridging, usually like they start learning programming in C, and then when they join like UIA or like the difficulty, they join for the first semester learn about C++, and then for the second semester in OP they learn about Java, where there is a huge part in the course content itself keep repeating like how for loop or like if condition work, which is exactly the same. What I think is they should keep progressing using just one tool, because like the tool is just an example. They can apply this thing, like this concept in any language. So like for example, they can start like with Java for all 3 courses, or like C++ for all 3 courses, and just like implementing the concept. So like for OOB, I don't need to spend some time learning about for loop and if condition if I can just apply the OOP concepts from the first day, because I already know how to program regardless of the language, and then move on. Because having multiple language, this does not help you a lot. Usually many companies, especially the big companies, will not care even if you like know this tool or not. Like when I got first hired by Grab for the internship, Grab mostly use Golang. I had no idea what's Golang when I got my offer. And I joined the company, and like in week or like max about 2 weeks, I already like pick it up and I start contributing and like getting my tasks. The thing is, you can learn this by yourself, but without having the necessity to keep repeating the exact same basics. But instead, the course should focus on the purpose of the course. Like every course should be a new milestone kind of thing. And for the projects, the point for the projects, some courses have the deliveries as reports. Even if like some courses, even the course is something that's very practical, I need like to develop something or I need like to create some system, the delivery is still report. This is, in my opinion, not very efficient, because students will not get the feel of how to develop something and how to develop this and deliver it and so on. Yeah, they need to, like if the course content involve something like practical or like need some development, then they should develop a system. I just graduated from IIUM, but I'm actually transferred from another university. That was like the case in my previous university. I had one of the projects in my resume that I actually discussed in one of the Amazon interviews. It was a project for first year, second semester. And the project has a really big scale as a first year student. And the project had 0 deliveries in terms of report, but just a system, like develop the whole system and deliver it. So that's the thing I noticed, that along the year make the students very good in writing reports, but not that good in developing something, which is the skill they will like need when they go out there for the market, join any company and so on.
Yeah.
To add one more thing there, that is, so in terms of software engineering, you build something from scratch. So one other good thing to learn is that, which we kind of do on a daily basis, is that we read others' code a lot. So like we read code like we read books or stuff like that. So one of the things that could be introduced as projects is that you take up a big repository from GitHub or open source code and give the students a different segment of it and deconstruct like what part is doing what and remap the whole code, like which function is calling which function and how the function works. So it's kind of learning engineering through reverse engineering of what already a built up system that would give them an idea like what established developers, engineers already did. And they were able to break it down and understand it from the ground up. So that is something should be introduced to. And because once people get into their job, they do it on a daily basis.
That's very interesting. Understanding how established companies do their thing, their development, and actually, okay, let me get that set. So we understand the big companies, how they work, how they deploy, develop their software codes, and then we can actually use it as an experience, as like a guideline to write other projects. Right.
Yes. So the idea is like you take, so if you go to GitHub, you take a particular big repository and then you try to understand how this whole code base works. So in the process of going through that, you might, if it's a language you didn't know before, you will get to learn it. And if there were particular design patterns you used, you will get to know how those design pattern works, and then what are the performance benefits and advantages there. So you learn a lot when you kind of deconstruct another code base.
Yeah, wow, I can see that. Okay, that's very new for me. What about you, Brother Ashraf? Do you want to share on what your suggestions would be?
So I think a lot of the thing that probably need to highlight is that you need to get programming out of the way as quickly as possible, right? Exactly. So that's fundamentally kind of like summarize of what they kind of thinking. Like, you know, they're talking about everything else that doesn't concern the act of programming itself, and that is true. But I think what the lecturer is asking is that, yeah, we know we need to get programming out of the way quickly. How do we do that, man? And I'm not exactly sure if I have a good answer for that. You know, I would say practice as quickly as possible on different programming language, so that they know that, you know, imperative language, this imperative language is going to be the same kind of with this imperative language. But in the end, I think it's probably just practice for this kind of thing. Yeah, and you
And
need
one
to get it
change
out of the
would
way.
be there is that instead of teaching C, teach how functional programming languages work, so that you now know all the functional programming languages. And when you teach, let's say, C++, instead of teach a functional programming language, then you have idea of all the functional programming languages. And then instead of focusing too much on Java, focus on object-oriented design patterns in the object-oriented class, so that you now know all the languages that implements object-oriented design patterns. So instead of like just OP is kind of, it is covered like within 3 to 4 weeks in a course now, but in our case I think it's much longer. So you should write a very fast, move on to design patterns and how to implement, because design patterns are really important to write large scale softwares if you don't know. And in our case, we only stop until understanding the object oriented components. We don't go into the design patterns, which I think should be introduced.
I see. Okay, we have 9 minutes till 12. I think I'll go look at the questions for a bit. Okay, so we have a question on, okay, we have a study question and also a career question. So Sister Bushra asked, what programming language would you suggest students to excel in?
Stop thinking in terms of programming language.
Yep, get the programming out of the way.
Get the programming out of the way as quickly as possible.
Okay. Another question from Brother Singhi. How do you motivate yourself to program daily, to solve problems daily? Maybe Brother Sohib can share about that on your daily problem solving questions.
Something that motivate me, and I used to have that in my previous university before I transfer here, and it's not very much present, and it's all on the students themselves, is the competitiveness between the students to learn and be like a better student, a better engineer. Usually it's not like in a toxic kind of way, it's actually like in a motivational way, that like me and my friends learning, and hey, like I solved 5 problems today, and then my friend, oh, I solved like 6 problems today. So there is a bit of competitiveness that help each of, like all of us, keep motivating ourselves and learning and help each other. So that's something that students in here mostly do not, how to say that, like do not get involved in a social activity related like to something tech, like like a programming contest or like a hackathon, something like
Hackathons.
that. Yeah, so this kind of stuff usually motivate the students. Oh, like this student is like my friend, he's like same batch, he actually done that, so why do I not like do the same? Like if he can do it, then I can do it, kind of thing. Like we are in the same batch, we should be having this feel of competitiveness, because that's what motivates me, that I see my colleague, he's like reached this far, then if he did, why didn't I do it, like kind of thing. I can also do that, so I go back and like keep solving and learning some stuff and so on. So that's how I motivate myself, or like that's how I used to motivate myself when I was start to learn this programming and competition kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
like competitiveness in unity. So you need like, you probably can have a group of friends work together and solve questions together.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah.
Brother Zari, would you like
I
to
guess
add
I
anything?
will add to that is that when you are in the university, don't restrict yourselves to learning only from your lectures or only from your class syllabus. So the best thing you can learn in your university is from your peers. Okay, so let's say for me myself, I have learned a lot from both Ashraf and Shoaib when we did competition together. Okay, like I started using Beam because of Ashraf's the way I saw Ashraf using Beam, so that really motivated me. So then I picked up Beam, and there were a lot of tricks Shoaib used to do in his programming. So when I was with him, I pick up some stuff from there. So you also need to learn from your peers. And you see, one of the reason, like, why would you go to a big company like this? What is the motivation there? If your only motivation is that they pay well, so that is not a good enough motivation to be there. One of the thing is you get to work there with a lot of smart people who knows a lot of things. I think that is way more valuable than anything else. So, and that same thing applies when you're in your classroom. So, because everybody there is there because they have the capacity to be there. And then if you start to learn from your peers and your classmates, then you will be actually learning a lot more. Okay. And then think of it like this. When you are trying to solve a problem on your own, you're using only one brain. But when you are brainstorming with your peers and everybody else, you're using a much more computational power in terms of getting the ideas. So use that. And I would say when you do that, everybody would be more active in like they're helping each other learning and they're learning from each other. So that is something would also motivate the competitiveness in between them.
What would you say to the students who refuse to join hackathons or competitions because they don't want to fail? They don't want to like, they just don't want to feel like they have done something that is not good enough. I think most
The
of the
thing
students
is,
feel
like,
that.
no one start being like a pro or like being a hero. I remember the first competition ever I joined with my team back in 2014. It was a 5 hour competition, 5 hour. And in this 5 hour, we just managed to solve one problem, just to like input a string and reverse the string. 5 hour, three of us just managed to solve that. And we've been like learning for 3 months how to program. But the thing is, we joined to get the experience. We joined like to see how things are and so on. That being said, the exact competition next year, our team won the 49th place globally out of like 3,000 team. So the thing is, you can join and you can fail, or like you cannot get a really high place, really high positions in the beginning, and that's okay, because when you join, you still learn, like you still see how this competition or how this hackathon go, and like you can see ideas from other teams, and as the year said, you will learn from your peers, the other team and your teammates. This experience itself is very useful, very like very well, in terms of it will help you when you join later on with more experience. It will be easier for you to like win and so on. And also, hackathon and competition is not made for students to win. It made for the students like to learn and get more experience. So don't just I have to join to get this place or like to win the competition, because that's not the purpose. If you're joining to win, then you are missing the whole point. The point for you to get the experience, to get like to like network with the students. Like for example, I got the interview from Amazon because my friend in Amazon, who's like my senior, referred me. If you do not put yourself in this environment, you will not get the network that will help you later on. Like this network itself is very important. I got into Grab because Ashraf gave me a referral when he was working at Grab. I got into Amazon because my friend in Edinburgh gave me the referral to Amazon. And I started to know Ashraf and Zarir from the competition. Like when I came to Malaysia, I started like, where is the ICBC team? And I joined them. This environment will help you a lot in your career, in your experience. You will learn so many new things. So you don't have to be a pro to join. The thing is for you to learn. So if you are a pro, like you don't have to join. You should join when you need to learn, when you need to improve.
So you have to have the right intention and purpose why you actually want to join. I see. We have an ICPC club here, right? And how is it now? And is there any plans of continuing in the long semester?
Since 2017, we like start training every semester, and then like we recruit like new students, the first year and second year students to join. And we actually had the training running since February, but then like due to MCO, we stopped. And then like once we can come back physical to the classes, the training will keep going. And you can, like there's a group, WhatsApp group for all the students who is involved with the ICBC. Any new students who are interested, like they should join. And even the training is not going, but all the students who are in the like who used to join the training are still practicing. They're still like solving together and like discussing problem. So if anyone is interested, they should join. And I really recommend every first year and second year student to explore that, because as Ashraf said, this will get the programming language, the programming out of the way really fast. You will be able to solve and program whatever idea you have very easily. This will make this issue, which I still see it's an issue even for like last year students. So you should get this as soon as possible. You don't have to join a competition, but just going through this for a bit will help you to be a good programmer and think and solve problems and so on.
For this upcoming long semester, if there are students who want to join, where would they go to?
They can reach out to Dr. Nurmazia. She can direct them. When I leave, like my teammates and the other juniors will be like picking up the training, and they will keep it going. So yeah, they can just reach out to Dr. Nurmazia, and she will assess them how to join.
I see. Okay, thank you. We are time. Do you guys mind answering a few more questions?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
The next questions are more for a career. So we have Brother Akish. He asked, what was language a huge barrier working for these international companies? Well, it will be Vancouver, Brother Zari in Vancouver, and also Brother Amirul.
Go ahead, Ashraf.
If you know English well enough, then I don't think it's much of a problem, especially for IIUM, as our medium of instruction is already English. But for other universities, they may have a bit of problem. Then I would suggest them to focus a bit on that, because it's kind of all about communication down here. Yeah.
What about Brother Sohib? How was your interview? Because you are going to a company in Spain who have like a very
okay. So as Brother Ashraf said, you only need to know English to join the company and to work. All the interview process was completely in English, and even the work environment, they do not require you like to have any other language. English will be just enough. Of course, like for me, I will have to learn, and like I already started learning Spanish, but that's because I will be moving there, so I will live in the country. But for like work-wise, I don't need any language other than English. Yeah, and that's I think apply for all big companies. Most of the rules just require English for the interview and for the work environment itself.
Okay. And next is from Brother Rashid. Is there any qualification required in order to intern in a well-known company like Graff? Maybe Brother Sahib can share about that.
I think Brother Ashraf will have more experience because he's worked there for 2 years.
Yeah. I spent one day in Grab interviewing like 5 candidates non-stop one day.
Wow.
But there's no particular qualification. Your
I have a
biggest
question.
problem.
Did the last candidate get in?
The last candidate get in?
The fifth one, the end of day.
A lot of candidates actually do not get in, right? So you have to understand that companies, they need to know that you put your work into it. That means that You need to make sure that you have a solid foundation, because training people who do not know how to code at all is very time consuming, for example. And let's say if you know how to code, you need to know a bit of data structure, especially in these big companies, because we're going to handle millions of records for sure. We're going to have several requests at very least per second for sure. And if you don't index the database, things will hang, and then the on-call will get ping, and then they will say, "What is going on here?" Things like that.
Yeah.
So the point is that you need to put some work and make sure that I know that you won't take too much of my time, right? So that's where, for example, if you have a lot of GitHub account, that would be a good idea. If you have previous working experience part time, that would be brilliant. But for big companies, in addition to that, you need to have some solid foundation of computer science.
Okay.
Then
I
your next
guess
problem is how to get the internship interview.
once you get your technical part, that you need to make sure that your interviewer is intrigued by talking with you. So then you're good to go.
Is there a big difference in interviews for internship and entry working?
That
Depends on the
depends.
company.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think for Amazon, there's not much different, I think.
Yeah, it's more or less the same. It's just
Yeah,
that
almost.
for the on-site, you don't have like so many interviews. You have less. So for each level up, you have more interviews.
Yeah, so for Amazon, they kind of expect the entry level to be kind of like a fresh graduate who doesn't know anything, right? For example, Sohaib, when he first joined Grab, he doesn't know what is JSON. So that is kind of the level of what he doesn't know, right? That is fine for an intern, and because we don't expect him to know anything much. But uh, we kind of want to gauge the potential and his capability to learn. Yeah, his ability to learn and his communication skills so that he can work together. Because it depends on company. At least in Grab, the interns do the same thing as engineers, but probably just a lot slower. Yeah.
And one other thing is once you have a referral, it doesn't ensure that you are going to get through. You still have to prove yourself. So
Yeah.
that is a given. So unless you can prove yourself, even if you have multiple referrals, it will not help.
Okay. The next questions from Brother Ashikur Rahman. Do you have any suggestions of students who are doing an internship for getting full-time job opportunities?
Hmm.
Maybe
That is, I
opinions?
think, a
Yeah.
lot depends on other issues. Then, let's say if you're working in a or if you're in a country where they don't offer full-time jobs to students before they're graduated, so those issues are there. So it varies, but most of the case, let's say the scenarios are good that they take full-time employees. If you do perform well in your interviews, most of the case the companies are really eager to take you for full time because they already trained you for 4 to 6 months, let's say. So you're already integrated with their system. So it's already you already know their company. So taking someone new and make them go through those first 6 months is more work. So it's good for them to already hire who is an intern. So it's really the chances are much higher.
Okay.
Yeah. To add to that, sometimes what matters more than having a job is where do you have the work at? If it is it a big reputable companies, or is it a big reputable software house, or is it some other companies that you might as well just go register yourself, right? So if it's a big company that is well known, then that is a plus for sure. If it's not, then you probably have to work harder to get a full-time job, like everyone else, I guess.
Okay. We have a question from our lecturer, Sir Abdul Rahman. Can you reflect your experiences about learning business process?
Oh, I'm the only one who did.
Yeah.
Oh, What kind of experience? I don't really have enough context on that.
I mean, was the question about the business process?
Yeah, it is. Can you reflect your experiences about learning business process? I think this is applying the what you learned in university into putting it in a business context. Like you're working for a company.
So for us, let's say for Amazon or even for Grab, when we join them, so their business process is already in place. We kind of get into that or learn how they do work. And
Yeah.
depending on the particular component or the team we are working inside the company, we might have to directly work with the business process and we might not. So it really depends on that.
Yeah.
But to some extent, you just have a general idea of the whole workflow the companies go through from the end client to you providing the service. But other than that, unless you are yourself implementing your own company or something, you don't come up with the business process like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's generally the case. I guess an exception, maybe a place where that is useful is when you are a software house. So you need to know you kind of need to predict what the client is trying to talking about, because the biggest problem I would guess in a software house is that trying to understand what the client is doing. So you need to understand the process of the client first to before you implementing, otherwise you will have to change a lot.
Like for anything we need to implement, and the coding is the last step we do. So it's the very last one. So all the first process is like you collect requirements, you go through the requirements, you validate them, you make sure that's you and the client are on the same page. You design, you then talk again to the client, and then you make sure that what you are going to implement is exactly what the client wants. So on when all of those are check marked, then you go ahead and code. So coding is not the obstacle in terms of developing software in a company.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll go on the last question from Brother Ahmad Hukim. Do you prefer to be a multitasker but average skill, like from front end to back end, or just focus on be specialized on some parts? I think, do you prefer being a full stack or focus on some parts of software?
Ashraf, you want to go first?
Yep.
Personally, I like to know how things work on any case on the whole stack. So I would say probably um, full stack, but that is mainly because of interest. Practically speaking, if you got the foundation right, you can go anywhere with kind of a bit of effort, but not much.
About this point, something like as a student perspective and what I see from many students who was like classmates and so on, they like some students take this as kind of an excuse to not explore like more and like learn about different stuff. Where I like from my point of view, as a student, you should not limit yourself by saying, oh, like I'm specialized in this point. You should go out there and like try to learn and explore all, as Ashraf said, try to understand how everything works, and then later on when like you have multiple year experience, you can then specialize yourself in one point. Like for example, as like university specialization, I'm actually specialized in data science and the computational intelligence, where I got my job in software like engineering. I'm not like working in machine learning or data science as my job. And like aside from that was my specialization in university. But the things for me, I try to learn about everything, try to understand like, oh, like I can learn a bit about security, some bit about machine learning, some bit about software engineering, and even software engineering, some bit about front end, back end, try to understand how everything works. And then once you have all this foundation, you can go from any point to other point. But then later on, you can like after like many years or like few years of experience, you can specialize yourself in one point. But having this as like second year, third year student, I'm just like a back end development in this point. That really limit your way to learn and explore more areas, more domains.
I see. Brother Zari, would you like to add on that?
I would repeat the same and would only say, in terms of knowing, you should know the whole system. which is like you should not separate the learning or break it down. But in terms of implementing, it would end up that at a particular point, you are working in the back end or you are working in the front end when needed. So which you prefer to work on for continuously is up to you. But in terms of knowing how things work, you should have the knowledge of how the whole system works. And in case you don't, what would happen is that you design a system in the back end in a way that is not very compatible with the front end. So then there would be problem and there would be technical debt going forward, because you have to rewrite your code and adapt. Somebody else has to come in and fix that. So you don't want that to happen, or as a company, they would not want that to happen. So even if you are working on front end, you need to know or have the idea how the back end works, or at least how the interfaces interact.
Okay. Okay, I think maybe one last question from Sister Marini. What are other opportunities for IT graduates besides, well, ICT graduates besides software engineer? Would you like to share?
I think it's a
Pick up
very long list, right?
Yeah, it's quite a long list.
Okay, it's all right. I think.
I mean, there are many other options. So I mean, it's they can surely explore. So it's not limited to only software engineering. So there are a lot of other options. They can go into the IT field. IT field has a lot of different segments also. So it's quite vast.
I see. Okay. Okay, I think that was a very insightful and really mind-opening discussion. I think we can close this session. And before I end, I would like to thank the Dean of KICT, Prof. Wahab, the Head of Department of Computer Science, Dr. Raini, lecturers of Coexist, Dr. Normazia, Dr. Andi, Dr. Hafiza, Dr. Rizal, and Dr. Amir for preparing all this. And the tech team, Brother Irwan and Brother Nazrin, who's behind the PC working on it. And the Q&A audience monitor, Sister Hannah, and also the SIG cybersecurity team, which helped promote for this event. That is all for today. Thank you thank you to the audience for your time watching this session, and thank you to the panels for lending your time. Brother Ashraf, 4 a.m. there. Brother Zarir, it's also 12 a.m. Thank you so much, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.